Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Juliet. So in today's video I will be showing you how I made the simple lace gown with turtle neck. So here's my fabric. I folded it into two using the biggest measurement I'm working with, which is the hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches of allowance and another 1.5 for zip for the back. So here's the back piece. I am marking 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance. So I'm going to mark that all the way to the down of the gown. So for the length, you're going to mark your full length plus extra 2 inches. So I'm using my ruler here to connect the points. So next is the front piece. So the front is also the biggest measurement, which is the hip divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches of allowance. So there's no zip allowance for the front piece. I'm placing the front piece on top of the back, exactly on that zip allowance line that I made. So the front piece is sitting exactly at that point. So next, from this top, I am marking the waistline, that's the half length, and then I'm marking 25 inches, which is my hip line. And then up here, starting from the front, so the measurement is starting on that front piece. I'm marking the shoulder I'm working with divided by 2. So shoulder 16 divided by 2, that is 8 inches. So I marked that again down so I get a straight line, and then I'm marking armhole of 9 inches. So next I'm going to curve my armhole like so. Next I am marking the neck. So I'm marking 3 inches from that front piece, and then on this armhole line I marked ½ inch down. I'm going to connect that into a slant to form the shoulder slope. So 3 inches is also the neck width I am working with. So the front neck is going to be 3 inches by 3. So you can use 2.5 for your neck width if you are sewing for a smaller person. So for the back neckline, I am using 1 inch deep and 3 inches wide, same as the front. So next I am marking the bust divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches. Then the same for the half length round divided by 4, and then another 2 inches for allowance. I added another half on that waistline because we're going to be shaping the back. Then I'm doing the same thing for the hip line, hip divided by 4, and then another 2. So on the half length, which is the back piece, I marked 9 inches from the top, and then I marked the half length and then the hip line. So on that half length, I went in by ½ inch. I'm going to connect back to the 9 inches up here, and then out again to the hip line like so. This is so that there is no zip bulge at the back when we're done. So next I'm connecting the lines, and then for the hem of the gown we're going to mark the same thing we had on the hip line at the down part. So hip divided by 4, and then another 2 inches for allowance. Also, all the measurements are starting on the front piece. We are not including the seam allowance in this measurement. Next I am cutting out So next I'm cutting the neck. Now I'm cutting the back neckline first, which is 1 inch zip, 1 inch deep, and then 3 inches wide. Then I'm going to cut the front neckline on the front piece only. Next I'm going to open up the back piece and then cut out the shape, that 1/2 inch we went in by. We're going to cut following that slant like that all the way out, and then open the rest of the back piece. So next we're going to mark a new zip allowance, another 1.5. Since we've removed 1/2 inch, we're going to replace that and connect back to the top and then back to the down part. So that's the line we're going to be using now for our zip. So next I'm going to go add a zipper at the top. I'll close the rest of the zip allowance from that point all the way down and then add a zipper up. Also, I'm going to have a slit at the back, so the slit is going to be 17 inches long. After adding the zip, we're going to join the front and the back pieces together on the shoulder. So here's the zip, the back piece is joined and I've added the zip. So I'm going to join them together, front and back, right sides facing each other. I'm going to go so, using 1/2 inch on the shoulder. So after that, I am going to mark the measurements I have. So we left 2 inches for allowance all the way down, so we're going to mark that. Here I placed the fabric, the right sides facing each other. I'm marking the half length and then the hip line again. So from that midpoint, I'm going to mark 1/4 of the waist round and then 1/4 of the hip, like that. So it's starting from the midpoint, the middle of that back piece. So I'm going to connect these lines together and then I will repeat the same thing on the opposite side. So after joining the two pieces together, this is what we have so far. Next I'm going to go hem the down part, but first we're going to open the slit. Remember I said it's going to be a slit at the back, so the slit is about 17 inches long. So I already sewed that place. I backstitched a couple of times at that point, so I'm just going to open it up now. After that, we are going to fold the lower part. So this part is going to lay the way it is, and then we'll fold like that. We'll just hem it a tiny bit, maybe like 1/4 inch, while the part that is down is going to lie the way it's lying, and then we will hem it like that. So the slit at the back is going to overlap. That's why the down piece is sitting the way it's sitting, and then this upper piece we just fold it once a tiny little bit and then hem the lower part all around with the other one lying flat. So I have hemmed the down part. Next I'm going to sew down this upper part. I'll just place it like that and sew it down. I don't want the seam to show on the outside, and then use hemming gum on the part that is lying flat. Next, to cut the neckline, I am measuring round the neck that I have, including the zipper allowance, and then I'm going to use that measurement to cut the collar. So I added half inch to what I got 10, so I added half inch, making 10 and a half. So my fabric here on fold is 10 and a half, and then the collar is going to be 1 inch, so I added another one, making it 2. So I'm marking 2 for the height of the collar. Next, we're going to mark the midpoint of this 10 and a half, which will be 5 and a quarter. So I'm going to mark that, and then on this part that is open, we're going to come up by 1 inch, and then on the down part I'll come up by another 1 inch, and then I'll connect the both points to the middle. So the down 1 inch to the middle, and then the upper 1 inch to the middle as well. So next I'm going to cut that out, and then I will place it on the fabric again and cut a second one, and then a third one again. So because it's lace and there's nothing is underneath it, and no lining or whatsoever, so we cannot add an interfacing to the collar. That is why I'm going to be using three of the collar pieces, just to make it a bit bulkier. So here I'm placing the two on top of each other. I added the third one off camera. I'm going to go sew like that, and then this is what I have here after ironing. Next, I'm marking the midpoint. I'm going to place the midpoint on the center front. So I'm going to pin from the wrong side. Starting from that midpoint, I place the midpoint of the collar piece on the center front. So I'll go sew round and then fold over the top piece and top stitch on the right side. After that, this is it. I also added 2 press buttons at the back. So next I'm going to measure the armhole. We're going to be using that measurement to cut the sleeve. So I'm going to measure like so all the way around. This is the right side. This is the dress on the right side. So whatever we have there, I'm going to add 2 inches to it for allowance, and then use that measurement to cut the fabric. So it's a flare sleeve. I am using 9 inches for the pencil part, so I used 10 inches here, 1 inch for allowance. So I came down by 4 inches on that open end, and I made an X curve like so. I measured around the curve to the point where I got the measurement on the sleeve, and then here I'm marking the round sleeve divided by 2. So I added 2 extra inches for allowance on both the up part and the round sleeve part, and then I'm using my ruler to connect the 2 points, and then I am cutting it out, as you can see. So after that, I'm going to measure around this upper part again until I got to that measurement we got when we measured the sleeve, and then I'm going to connect it down. That's the line we're going to sew on. So I'll measure until I get to that point, then I'll make a mark, and then for the down part I will mark exactly the sleeve round divided by 2. So we're going to go sew straight down on this sleeve. Next up, I have a piece of fabric here. It is wide, so you can measure the round sleeve and then multiply that measurement by 3 to get the width. As for the length, it's the remaining part of my sleeve, so the total sleeve length is 15 inches. So I removed 9 for the upper part, so we're going to use the remaining for the down part. And it has 2 steps, so one is longer by 2 inches. So next I'm going to go join these these fabrics together, and then hem the lower part of each of them. So I have 4 in total, 2 for one sleeve and 2 for another sleeve. So here I have the sleeve. I'm marking the midpoint with my chalk, and then I went ahead to fold again and then mark. So now we have 4 points including the side seam. So I'm going to use that as a guide to distribute my gathers. So the sleeve is gathers. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm marking the midpoint and then I'm going to fold again. I'll mark 2 more points. Then I am going to match these points on the strip to the points on the sleeve. So using my pins now, I'm going to hold these points in place. So I'll get the chalk on the strip and then the one on the sleeve, and then I'm going to match all those 4 points. That is so that our gathers are distributed evenly. We don't want one side fuller than another side. So after pinning all 4 points, we're going to now make pleats to fill up each space like that all the way around, and then I will now place the longer one. Doing the same thing, I will mark those 4 points again and then pin them over the first step. It's the shorter one that we are sewing first before the longer one. We're going to repeat the same thing, make pleats again all around, and then we'll do the same thing for the second sleeve. So after that, this is what we have. This is what our sleeve is looking like. It's looking beautiful. So next we're going to attach it to the dress. I'm going to match the side seam of the dress to the side seam of the sleeve. Using my pin, I'm going to hold that in place, and then I will match the midpoint of the sleeve to the shoulder of the dress, making sure it is right sides facing each other. Next, I'm going to take this to my sewing machine now and sew round using half of an inch, and that is it. Here is our dress. So if you want to know how to make the underdress for this type of fabric, check my previous video. Bye.